What is it that's confusing us? Why is it we have to run away from home? To stay out of trouble, you assimilated. What happened to us? It reminded me of the story where the farmer was quite content. He reaped his crops every year, very happy. Then one day a traveler came by and asked if he could stay the night. And that evening, the traveler told him about his travels. And there was this place where he had gone to where there was acres of diamonds. You could just scoop up the sand and there would be a diamond. Now, the farmer became discontent. He just kept thinking about these acres of diamonds. I'd like to go there and find them. So he sold his farm and he traveled the world around. He never did find the acres of diamonds, and he died alone in a strange place.
The Haho'li of the Huu-ay-aht people extends from Waałšiʔalalin Falls along the west coast of Vancouver Island, out to Cape Beale, and inward to the Barkley Sound, to Coleman Creek, a place that we call waałšiʔaḷin. And it extends outward as far as the eye can see towards the Pacific Ocean. Presently, the Huu-ay-aht are scattered throughout the world, and many have moved to urban centers and to different towns and cities away from Huu-ay-aht Haho'li. But there is a home there, and the Huu-ay-aht people are very much rooted to the land. We have survived natural disasters, famine, we've survived from warfare, and now our modern story is surviving and coming back from colonization.
The very fact that our people are living away from home is one of the effects of colonization. The ultimate objective of Canada was to remove the Indian from the child. And you do that by establishing residential schools. It almost took the Indian out of me, and I'm only one. We've all been affected in different ways.
It was a church school. They physically abused us, they raped us. They didn't teach us nothing. I don't know nothing. I got no education because of them, and I wish we could turn the clock backward and throw that time away, because you got to excuse me, because every time I talk about the residential school, I cry, because it's made me what I am today, an uneducated Native. A lot of my friends are dead today because of the residential school. They became alcoholics, and I was 7 years old when I ended up in residential school. We were forced to be there. My father and mother didn't want me there, but the government said, you gotta go. I was there for 13 years.
They weren't allowed to speak their language. They weren't allowed to sing their songs. If they got caught doing that, they would get strapped in school. I think it put a lot of scare in some of the people, and they didn't teach their kids songs and dances, and that was because I think they were afraid of what might happen to them if they had continued, right? You go a few generations and they don't speak the language, they don't sing the songs. They've been living in the cities, whether they're in Port Alberta, Nanaimo, Vancouver. A lot of them, they just think that they don't have any real roots, any connection to their traditional homelands.
I'm Huu-ay-aht First Nations. I was born and raised in Vancouver. Grew up in the downtown east side. Both my parents are alcoholics, and went to my first foster home in 1990. That one there, I was there for a year. I was allowed outside twice to play the entire time I was there. They decided to give my dad another chance. I was there for exactly 17 days, and he picked up the bottle again, and I found myself living with my mom. My mom started drinking a lot more. I was angry because I'd moved at that point 5 times in 2 years, so I had no desire to behave or listen. That's when my mom started hitting me. One night I woke up to her reefing on my ear, and she dragged me out of bed, drugged me down the stairs, and threw me in an ice cold shower, and took one of those back scrubbers, took the wooden handle and started beating me across the face, the back. And she went to go bash my head against the counter, and I was like, "No, Mom, you can't, there'll be blood." And I lied for her. I said, "Oh, I got in a fight at a hockey game." The people that were supposed to love, care for me, show me compassion, had all failed me. Moved 64 times before I turned 19 years old. So I never learned to care for people or be respectful at the age when you're supposed to know.
Our government and our colonizers have spent millions and millions of dollars in trying to remove, with purpose and intent, the connection that we have to the land and to our families and to our resources.
I'm very, very glad that my grandfather was a boat builder. My father was in the fishing industry, and I attempted to follow, but the fishing industry collapsed.
They always called us, "You're good for nothing, lazy Indians. All you learn how to do is drink, drink, drink." They're all lazy. And that really bothered me, because when I got out on my own with that boat, and I said to myself, I says, "I'm going to show those people that we're not all like that." And I had done really good with that boat. A few years later, I started thinking, gee, this boat is too small. I said, "I want a bigger boat. That boat is too small for me." So I went ahead and had a boat built here, 42-foot trawler, the last trawler I had. And I was in debt. And he told me, he says, "Ben," he said, he called me into the office when it was launched. He said, "If you don't behave, I'm going to shoot you," he said to me. And he said, "Pete," I said, "I got a double barrel shotgun and I have all the bullets. I'll bring that up to you and you can use my gun to shoot me," I said to him. So I fished and I fished. I never missed hardly any days in fishing. I paid that boat off in no time. And then they started telling us, "You can only fish in this block. We can't fish in a place that we normally used to fish." We tried to fight it. Our hands were tied. I got fed up with it, and I told my wife, I said, "I'm going to sell out." I said, "I don't like this." There was no more jobs, no more, we couldn't go fishing anymore. That's when they started moving out of the Banfield.
My name is Barry Halverson, and I'm married to Darlene Nookman, Aimchit. And we're standing on the beach in front of our house by Santa Maria Island, south side of Sarita. This is a really important river to our people. Oysters are on the beach here. There's clams there, and prawns and crab out in the ocean. So we really got to be careful about how we're treating our rivers, and especially this one here, the heart of the people. In the early days when they logged up in here, it was just devastating.
I'm Bob Bocking, a fisheries biologist with LGL Limited, an environmental consulting firm here in British Columbia. I've had the pleasure of working with the Huu-ay-aht First Nation for about 25 years. We're standing here on the banks of the South Sarita River. It's been subjected to industrial logging for over half a century. The banks get eroded. It's probably at least double what it should be in terms of width. And all this gravel is moving down off the hill slopes and through the watershed. And so that destabilizes the spawning habitat right after the eggs have been deposited into them, and all those eggs get washed out and they don't survive. This is a serious washout. There's roads up above and there's been cut blocks up above which have taken away the stability that you get from trees. And then a big rain event.
The biggest one was 2006, where we had rain events. When it rains here, it really rains, so we had 200 millimeters within, I think, 36 hours. You have multiple slides like this. That is the source of those piles of gravel that we saw there at the confluence of the Sarita and South Sarita.
Nitrogen that the salmon carry in their bodies when they migrate up the river. The bears take them inland and they eat part of it, and the rest just decomposes in the forest. And that nitrogen that from these decomposing fish provide healthy trees, and that you can see it in the rings on tree growth, and you can say, wow, that was a good year. There was a lot of salmon because the growth ring is just massive that year. So the health of the river is directly connected with the health of the forest.
It'll be a combination of bringing science-based knowledge to the task, as well as Huu-ay-aht First Nations values and their vision for this watershed. And if it's to recover it to a much more natural state, that's going to take quite an injection of money and reduction in logging and time. A lot of time.
Isak. Respect was caring. Respect for one another, respect for the land itself. Waałšiʔaﷲ. Everything is one and connected. Huu-ay-aht, taking care of. It is responsibility for Huu-ay-aht to take care of the waałšiʔaﷲ. The present-day motto of the Huu-ay-aht people is ancient spirit, modern mind.
We were given the opportunity to rebuild our nation, to become what we should have been, not what we are now after the legacy of colonization, and not necessarily what we were even before contact, but something better. The principles by which our ancestors lived and led their people are the principles that will inform how we as leaders today, in the modern day, should be engaging with our people. Because it's the tradition by which our leaders led in the past that inform the expectations of our people. They know it's there and they know when it's not there. So we have to demonstrate that good governance according to those three principles. They're core to the identity of Huu-ay-aht. We are ultimately responsible for what happens. We are responsible. We can no longer point the finger at some other. It's not the Crown, it's not an Indian agent, it's not a minister in Ottawa, not anymore. It's us. And I think that is inherently intimidating for a people who have had no opportunity to make decisions for themselves, to flex those muscles. The idea that we no longer have a scapegoat for our own troubles, our own challenges, is something that we should celebrate as much as be intimidated by. Because when we surmount those challenges, we'll climb that mountain. nobody carried us, our ancestors would smile on that idea.
Before treaty, we didn't have the decision-making power to say that we're going to let our guiding principles guide us fully. So we were under the Indian Act, which provided a lot of handcuffs to how we were able to do things within our community. We didn't have the ability to build houses at the pace that we wanted to. Now we have the ability to provide necessities that citizens will need if they want to come home and work for Huu-ay-aht. Huu-ay-aht is looking at economic development in three approaches. There's the approach of what we can do in the short term, the approach in the mid-term, and the long term. And all these approaches are to meet a goal down the road. Forestry has always been our bread and butter. It's been one that's a well-established industry that brings in revenue, and it's something that within our Hahuthli we have resources to be able to bring money in right now. Midterm is how do we continue that, make it more efficient, reduce the dependency on forestry, and then how do we build other businesses at home in short term that can help that along midterm.
When you can provide for the needs of your citizens by the resources you have and what you can do, and it's designed by how you want it, we're looking after ourselves. And that, to me, is very key, because when you're dependent on someone else, you're doing it on their terms. You're not doing it on your terms. When we're self-sufficient, we're able to provide more service and programs for our citizens. We're able to go beyond what's offered by government. And that's the key. That, to me, is self-governing.
With treaty, it just really opened up our ability to buy more. We went into an agreement and purchased 11 properties last January. And this really changed our role in the local economy. And now we have activity at the motel, the pub, the general store, the restaurant, down here at the dock. What we see is Banfield, but you know, for what it is for Huu-ay-aht is our home for thousands of years.
This new world that we're going down the path of, it requires education. It requires all the tools that we have in our treaty. It requires the youth to be involved. How are we going to do that? How are we going to build fishermen? We have to have a plan where the nation does things, where business does things in unison, so that the outcome is that we get back to some of the historical greatness, to get back to our connection to the sea. So this work that we're doing is really setting the foundation for future generations. So it's crucially important that we get these economic engines going and that we do it right. Don't look at our laws like they're holding us back. Look at them so if it's not working, tweak it so that it makes sense on the ground to our people right now. Record it properly as it happens so that future generations can look back and say, oh, that's how they did that.
Something that I was really interested in when I first moved home was our strategic plan. It really fascinated me because it was something that Huu-ay-aht worked with the community to create. We asked them, what do you want us to focus on? And the people told us, they said, we want communications better, we want this better, we want this better. And we created this huge roadmap and this strategic plan of what we need to do, how we need to get there, and what people want us to do.
I believe that the place that the Huu-ay-aht are in right now, in the modern day, is going to be looked back upon more so than any other time since the very beginning, because we are now a modern treaty nation, and we have the ability to govern and care for ourselves in a way that we see fit. We are going to come back from colonization together.
Because of where we're coming from, what has been done to us, or what has been taken away from us, we focus a lot on not losing what little we have left, and what is often lost is taking the risk to try to get more for the future.
We have to remember that we were given money for 9 years called Treaty Implementation Funding. It's a one-time funding and it's there, but once that's gone, we have to be able to operate on our own. We have to do it in a way that it's sustainable. We have to do it in a way that takes the values of our people into consideration. If we want to help the hereditary chiefs reclaim their Huu-ay-aht, to look after their Huu-ay-aht, we need more than what we have right now. We have 35 salmon streams that need attention right now. Well, we don't have the resources to do that. So we have to think bigger than just providing for today. Let's think outside of the box.
The infrastructure is aging, and we're going to need huge investment on top of what we've done already to get to a healthy community where we want people are moving away from the city, and that's what we're wanting, but we need to match, be able to offer the same healthy infrastructure for them. So it's huge costs, like it's millions of dollars to put infrastructure in. We need to find revenues and resources to be able to invest in our lands.
We just recently had an audit, and they identified all these different things that we could do to make sure that we stayed within our budget. But if we're not getting more revenue coming in, how are we going to possibly keep that roadmap up? How are we going to keep that strategic plan going if we don't have the revenue coming in? If we're not getting that nest egg that we're getting every year for the treaty, how can we possibly keep on track with that? It needs to be something substantial. If it was something that the businesses could cover, we wouldn't be worried. But I fear for our nation, I fear for our community, I fear for our elders and our children, that if we don't find something that we can commit to and make some serious revenue, I really worry that things aren't going to go well for us. In November of 2014, they started gearing up for the People's Assembly. I started getting the mail-outs and things like that. It was a lot of turmoil about LNG. There was a lot of people who were very outspoken. It was a very heavy assembly. We really amped up our game in the communications department to try to reach out to people to make sure that they make an informed decision.
(2014, July 8th. The date sticks with me because I knew that it was going to be very controversial. You think of Isak, Huu-ay-aht, and Ishuk Masawak, and then you say the words LNG. It should be nowhere near us. Being a First Nations and exploring this, it's going to make a ripple effect. It's going to make noise, not just in our territory, but all over the world. It's going to happen somewhere on the Pacific, no matter what. And I think about how the conversation started. They came to us to, talk about this for the next 3 years. The conversation I had with my son leading up to a vote, and he didn't have a vote, but I wanted to let him know what was going on. And I told him, it's exploring the opportunity of going ahead with it or not going ahead with it. There's going to be a whole great learning experience in between that July 8th to whenever we decide to vote for it. We're going to learn lots. His words were, well, let's learn about it. There's still so much more that we need to learn.
Now they say with this LNG, that's going to be they say it's going to be a good thing, but I mean, for who? They tell people off reserve that, you know, if you go and get a trade or go and get yourself educated, you're going to be guaranteed a job with this LNG plant. They could go and become an electrician, a plumber, whatever it is, but there's no guarantee they're going to get a job in that position.
One of the advantages of being a treaty First Nation is we have the ability to have a different say on big projects. I've seen it, we've all seen it firsthand on this project that we're looking at with the proponent, is the respect and the engagement and consultation. Basically, it's just a whole new relationship between us and business and government where we actually have a say. We sit at a table and we have a say, where before we didn't.
If I choose to move back home, there needs to be something there. There needs to be a school, there needs to be homes. So if something like this could bring citizens home to live like in their traditional territory for what could be like the first time in their lives, to live, to grow, to be able to harvest their seafood and stuff, I think that's really important.
All these young people here, they're 4 or 5 years old. They don't know what's going on. But they're going to feel the effects 40, 50 years down the road. What are they going to say about us? They're going to say they sold us out, pointing fingers at us when they get to a certain age and they have nothing to eat down there.
A project like this will enable us to reduce our forestry harvesting activity. And if we can do that, we're disturbing the land far less than we would if the only opportunity for income was forestry.
Now, our hands have been untied. We got all these big ideas about selling gas to overseas. But don't forget the river. All the other stuff should be secondary.
"2014 was a year where we embraced change. We embraced opportunity to a degree that it made people uncomfortable. When people cried out to slow down, it was heard as, 'Stop changing things, we want it like it was before treaty.' That was the perception behind those closed doors. So now we've learned to slow down. We've learned to build consensus and involve those people. To go slow is to go at all.
You know, and whether our people decide to go with it or not, I think like if it happens in our territory, if our people decide, yes, I think what greater place to have it, to make sure that things are done right to our standards, you know, world-leading standards. It could help fast track us. You know, we need to put stuff towards our youth, stuff towards our health, get our people healing. I think the project, if it went through, yeah, I think it would definitely help our people. And if it doesn't go through, I think that's fine with me too.
Today I'm a different man. I was falling down drunk for 45 years, and I woke up crying one morning and told myself, why am I doing this to myself? You know, I got 3 pretty daughters and a handsome son and a whole bunch of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and I sobered up 7 years ago and I'm the happiest guy in the world today. This is what I would say to my grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Stand strong, be proud of what you are, and become educated.
My first taste of culture was in the penitentiary. It's sad that it had to be that way, but at the same time, it's not, right? Didn't know any of this stuff existed. And I grasped it. That's the one thing that was missing from my life. It's the one thing that'll never go away. I spent 18 months in a remand center. That's when I You know, after seeing the same people come in and in and out, and I was still in on the same charge, and it does sadden me that, you know, it was ones that were in and out were the First Nations. I made the decision that I'm not going to be that person. When I get out, I'm done. I'm not coming back. Right? I need to move away from Vancouver, get away from all the people that I know. So I got released in 2010. I decided I'm going to be a family man now, and I worked my absolute hardest over the last 6 years to be a good father to both my daughters, to be the exact opposite of everybody that was supposed to be there for me.
Harry is one Huu-ay-aht citizen that I am extremely proud of. He was a perfect example of what happens to children that end up in the system and lost. They're disconnected from their roots, and he was already disconnected, I think, from the beginning. He knew that he didn't want to go back to that place. Just by connecting with his family and going home to the traditional territories and getting involved in our traditions and cultures and bringing his girls in, like, he is a success story, for lack of better words.
Waałšiʔaﷲ. Everything learnt is meant to be taught. It's a cycle of life for teachings. And this goes back to a time when Huu-ay-aht relied strictly on oral tradition to pass forward and to share our cultural knowledge.
We're here at the very end of our 2016 People's Assembly. You know, we were here to witness ancient treasures coming back home.
When we were negotiating the treaty for the nation, we made sure that the artifacts were a part of this package, recognizing that that's our responsibility to uphold and maintain our traditions and our culture. Some of these artifacts have been around for hundreds of years. My people have been here for thousands and thousands of years, and for that to come back full circle is really, really powerful and really meaningful to the Huu-ay-aht Nation. We waxed down cedar bands on the document to kind of honor what our ancestors have done for us in the past, and recognizing that you know, this is something that's coming back full circle back to the true owners again. It was a really emotional day, but also a really rewarding day for the Huu-ay-aht people, and that brings great meaning to our nation, because it's a testament to that we never forgotten who we are and where we come from.
The whaling cape, the sealskin floats, the cedar rope. We've been taking the youth to the museum for the past 3 years to go and visit those very artifacts, for them to see something that used to be in a museum and be able to witness the signing. You know, it's like the exclamation mark that, you know, they're back in our hands. The youth of today, they're so much stronger than from when I was young. There's a place that we want to be in 2033 where, you know, our kids will be free from the negative effects of colonialism. We have a long ways to go, and we need everybody to pull together to bring us into the future. It's going to take like 7 generations for us to get back to who we were.
Culture isn't frozen, it's living. It grows and changes with the times. We are a community, a people that live with the legacy of 2 worlds. And it's bridging those 2 worlds, holding in veneration the generations of people who have come before us, but also doing what we can now with the modern knowledge that we have to make a brighter future for our people.
I go back to the story I read many years ago about acres of diamonds, where this man wasn't happy with what he had. He sold his farm, ended up dying alone, broke. The farmer who bought the farm and that building decided to make a cellar. He dug, and there were the diamonds. The guy had been sitting on diamonds his whole life. The river is our acres of diamonds.
I'm moving home today. This is actually my childhood home. It's kind of crazy that we ended up buying it, me and my partner. We were looking for houses, and this one just totally was randomly up on the market, and we're like, you know what? Let's go look. Like, it was just like the universe opened up for me and was like, Brittany, you need to come home now. It hasn't been real. I mean, we've been working toward this for so long. And today's the first day that it feels like a home.
I've never really had a sense of home, ever, until I had my own family. So I decided, well, I can't teach my daughters something I don't know. It feels really good to be home and to learn my people's ways. Definitely planting my roots here. It's home. It's been one of the highlights of my life, is being able to learn something that I didn't get an opportunity to learn when I was a kid. All the struggles I had before have definitely been worth leading up to what I'm living now. And I wouldn't change any of it for the world.
So we have a couple photos on our mantle of a woman by the name of Kankacha, who's my grandfather's grandmother. She was probably born anywhere between 1840, maybe even before then. She was given an English name, Lucille. My daughter, her name is Esri Lucille Jack. The reason why it's important to me is because I think Kankacha was the last woman in our family to be born and raised into a self-governing Huu-ay-aht First Nations. And in our family, Esri is the first girl or woman to be born into a self-governing First Nation. And that's why it fills me with pride and hope. And a struggling baby. Who are you? You want to go run around? No, I want the camera. That's what I want.
Okay, so do I chew it?
Apparently, no, you don't do it. How do you turn it on?
I've never had an oyster either. Squish it with my tongue. I'm real nervous now. You guys are all watching me. Lightheaded.